Hey there, it's Scott at startatherapypractice.com. Thanks for tuning in. Had an opportunity to visit with Dr. Frederick Covington, Occupational Therapist. He's in private practice. He's an author, an app developer, a program developer, a speaker. He does a lot of different things, more than just one-on-one treatment. And I want that to inspire you to use your therapy skills and knowledge to branch out beyond one-on-one treatment, to develop something, to work on something outside of one-on-one treatment. So listen in as I talk to Dr. Frederick Covington. Stop by the website at startatherapypractice.com. Thanks. Hi there, this is Scott at startatherapypractice.com. I'm here today with Dr. Frederick Covington. He's an occupational therapist. He's a private practice owner. He's an app developer. He's an inventor. He's a speaker. I think he wears a cape. I'm pretty sure. I mean, this man, he is everywhere. How you doing today, Dr. Covington?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've been working out some kinks on this Google Hangouts, haven't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I think we've gotten through it.
I appreciate your patience. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'm going to give just a little bit of background. Like I said, you wear many hats, and just a true entrepreneur. So I tip my hat to you on that. You graduated from Howard University with an OTD, a doctorate in occupational therapy. And after you got out of Howard University, what did you do and what led you to private practice?
Well, I originally started in a geriatric facility. And that facility was fine, but I longed for something a little more. And so that's what piqued my interest in pediatrics. And the way that I got into pediatrics is that one of the companies that I was contracting with, they actually had a pediatric component. And so there was someone that was absent for, let's say, 4 or 5 days. And they asked me to see those particular students. And my thought is, hey, this is a wonderful way to kind of creep in the pediatrics. And since it was already an interest of mine. And so those 4 days turned into 10 years. And I'm still with that particular company doing the same job.
Well, it must be treating you pretty good then. And you must be enjoying treating the pediatrics then.
And yes, and even just to follow the kids, say some of the kids I started with were in, say, 3rd grade, and now, say, last year, some of those kids graduated. And so just to see that progress and the effect that occupational therapy has had on their lives and the lives of their parents, and just even working within the school system with the teachers and administration.
Yes, I can appreciate I mean, that's better than money sometimes to see the progress of these kids, especially if they're disadvantaged kids. You know, there's some rough homes out there as far as what kids are growing up in, and to be a positive influence like what you're doing, and especially I can say this because I'm a male, positive male influence. Being an OT, that's kind of a rare bird.
Yes.
And I mean, you're doing some good stuff.
Thank you. We all are, as male OTs. Like you said, sometimes we're hard to find, but
Yep.
we exist.
It is a rare find. That's right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Frederick, when you started branching off into doing private practice, doing it your own way, what kind of motivated you to do that?
What motivated me to do that was, when you're working for a company, it's always their way. And one of the things that I really disliked about working for other companies is productivity. And that was something that really got under my skin. Well, you need to be 90% productive, but I have 10 patients that really need the time and the care that an OT is supposed to provide. So being able to focus on the care rather than looking at productivity and the financial gain, I think that really pushed me more toward my private practice, to do it my way.
I can appreciate that. It is much more rewarding doing it your way. And
Yes.
as I've said on my podcast, instead of working for the man, you get to work for yourself, and it's
There we
more
go.
rewarding.
Yes, sir.
So good for you. When you started your private practice, I always like to get into some nuts and bolts. How did you do paperwork for your private practice? What were you doing progress notes on? How are you doing billing? Just kind of walk us through that.
Okay, well, initially with the billing aspect, the Medicaid system, they have their own program or app, if you will, that you simply plug in the information, and that actually did all the billing for you. And you would log online and put in your notes. Everything was online when I started with the government. So didn't have to do any of my own paperwork. But eventually when I branched off into pediatrics, I actually created my own paperwork. I didn't, and I still don't use any particular programs to do paperwork, because sometimes it's not always the same. To like the evaluation, I might want to, in this particular evaluation, when you're working for a company, they may want to look at range of motion, strength, what have you. Whereas, say I did two evaluations today, and they were totally different. And so the evaluations look totally different, where for one child I'm looking at fine motor and executive functional skills, where with another child I'm looking at hypotonia. So the evaluations always look totally different. And so I just prefer to use my own as my patients come, and I just amend it according to that particular person.
Yep. That's kind of how we've done it in my practice also. Just, we're writing we're writing assessments up on a Word document template that we create, but you can modify it.
Mm-hmm.
And the progress notes are on a spreadsheet, and we can modify that also. So I think that's, especially when you're first starting out, I think that's kind of a good way to start, where you're not beholden and have to pay a monthly fee to a online EMR. Although, you might work into that one day, but you got to cut some corners, especially when you're first starting out. So I understand that. So you went into pediatrics and doing your own paperwork. How have you tried to expand your client base as far as growing your practice? What all have you done as far as marketing and getting the word out?
Well, I have appeared on some radio shows, just speaking to different aspects of childcare. And, I wiggle in occupational therapy, and I give myself a shout out, if you will. So I promote myself like that. Coming from a music background, I almost promote myself as any music artist would, as far as sending out a press kit. This is who I am, this is what I do, and I market myself that way. And in addition, doing the YouTube and Vimeo videos, and that has helped me grow a lot.
Excellent. And I've looked at some of those videos. I want to see, since we're using Google Hangouts here, let's see if we can go to your website and we'll take a look at those videos and also look at your website, because I like to coach therapists who are in private practice that you got to have a website, and you've got a slick website. So I want to see if we can show people what yours looks like, and also maybe some of the video. All right, so this is your website at Ask the OT, and the website domain is askdrcovington.com, drcovington.com. And I'll put when I do the podcast version of this, and I'll put a link in the podcast post, and I'll also put a link in the YouTube post. So look below there for a link to all these different sites that we're going to talk about. But this is a good example of a therapy practice website. And I'm going to scroll down here. Lots of pictures, and Dr. Covington's putting himself out there. You can see over here on the right, got a picture of himself. And that's what you got to do. I mean, people got to know who you are, because people do business with other people who they know, like, and trust. I mean, that's kind of the saying as it goes. And so you can, the different services, you explain OT services. This is the cool part right here. You have OT videos. I mean, you've done all these videos. I've looked at some of these, and you know what I like about these, Frederick?
And what's that?
You are a sharp-dressed man in each one of these. I love it. I mean, this is how it's done. As far as, I mean, you're explaining what OT does. You're explaining what you do. You look great in them. I mean, you dress snappy and you're professional. And if I suggest that these therapists who are listening go by and look at these. I mean, you know what you're talking about. You're explaining what you do. And that way people trust you. They're, all right, Dr. Covington knows what he's talking about. He's explaining all these different diagnoses and these different difficulties that my child might have. And that helps people trust that you know what you're talking about. So, I mean, look at all these videos. This is excellent.
And yes, and also speaking on the dress, when you're in IEP meetings, I found as a student, say being in ISPs and IEP meetings, that some occupational therapists will shy back from the actual conversation and won't be, for lack of a better word, emboldened to, speak their part as medical professionals. And for me, I try to take that to the extreme, because I am the authority on occupational therapy at this table. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how we should all present ourselves.
Yes, because if you don't speak it, somebody's going to speak it for you, and they're not going to say it as well. They're not going to know what they're talking about. So step up to the plate. And it looks like most of them are set up in that sort of format. You talking from the desk and explaining a symptom or a condition, and this kind of unpacking that. Is that pretty much it?
Yes, I try to give, say, the medical definition and all the technical jargon that goes along with our profession, the range of motion, the manual muscle testing, and then I do what's called what I like to call a breakdown, and I try to put everything in more simplified terms.
Well, these are excellent, and these are all right here on your website, so on YouTube. And so I heavily suggest that therapists do something similar to this. Show yourself in action. Show people that you know what you're talking about. Put it on your website. And over here, I think I had your YouTube channel up. This is your YouTube channel, so you got all the same videos over here, and that way people can find you searching on YouTube. Also, YouTube is a search engine, so put your information in there also. Explain to us what the Genius Notebook system is.
Okay, the Genius Notebook, it was initially designed to address difficulties with executive functional deficits. I work with a lot of students, say from the ages of actually 15 to 22, that may have developmental delays or behavioral problems, but will more than likely eventually be out on their own. And so as far as looking at things like money management, as far as time management, as far as just managing yourself in society, that's what I focused on with the Genius Notebook. And also I twerked some things so it could be applicable for them to be in school as well, for them to keep up with their assignments, or if the teacher sent something home to the parent, so everything can be organized in the notebook.
Well, let's go over this first, the TheraKey. I was looking at, this is where your musical talents come into play, I'm sure. Explain to us what TheraKey is.
Yes, TheraKey. Well, TheraKey came about, it was my freshman year as a therapist after graduating, and there was a contest at the Aota conference. I think at the time it was in Minneapolis, I believe, and they were looking for people that were developing new products, had new ideas. And so I said, hey, I have some ideas. Let me submit. And my idea was very basic. It was a keyboard, and what I would do, I would color code the keys with just dots, colorful dots that you could get from the dollar store or Walmart, and I arranged them in a certain order. And so after that's done, I made what I call dot maps. And with the dot maps, I would place them in front of the person that's going to be using TheraKey, and they would have to follow the dot maps. And depending on what ailment they had, I would do, say, I may ask them to do all the red keys from left to right. And so doing something like that, you're working on range of motion, say at the shoulder and crossing the midline. And there's so many things that you can bring about using a musical keyboard. And I thought it was, it did prove to be very beneficial to a lot of people. And so I initially got the TheraKey set up into a couple of geriatric facilities in the area, and they continue to use it.
Do you, with some of the kids that I treat who have some executive function difficulties and maybe some ADHD, which most of the time those things are hand in hand, I usually recommend that the parents enroll them in a one-on-one music a music session, whether it be piano, or I usually try to direct them towards piano. I think that's typically a better instrument as far as, it's all laid out there on a line. Both hands are incorporated, sort of doing similar things, whereas a guitar or a stringed instrument, the hands are doing totally different things. Do you make that recommendation some to the parents of the kids that you see?
Yes, it's funny that you say that. Actually, I work in tandem with a music therapist, and I recommend that the kids partake in that, and she does offer those services, but I like to edge them toward the music first, and then I'll recommend doing piano lessons, something that's very structured, and like you said, the left and right hand are doing different things, and you're working on so many skills.
Well, and that brings up, and I probably need to tap into this more myself, as far as getting in contact with either a music therapist or people who give music lessons, and just let them know that you exist as a therapist. Give them a business card and say, hey, if you ever see this with some of the kids that you're teaching music, I work with kids who have these difficulties, whether it be left-right dominance difficulties or crossing midline, or just some different executive function difficulties. That's a pretty good marketing tool right there, just to contact and network with those music teachers. So recommend that. I'm going to use that myself.
Yeah, and actually now, since Obamacare has been unveiled, now say things like Medicaid waiver, they'll pay for music therapy, they'll pay for art therapy. There's a lot of things that they're paying for now that they wouldn't pay for, say, a year and a half ago. So you can really incorporate music therapy now.
Huh, I did not know that.
Yeah, but I just found that out maybe 2 weeks ago. So we're moving ahead in a lot of areas.
Wow. I'll have to do a little research on that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to go over, you have an app called the IoT Session. Explain a little bit about what the IoT Session app does.
Okay. IoT Session, I came up with this app to work on a multitude of deficits. So with the app, you can work on fine motor skills, you can work on visual perceptual skills, you can work on visual scanning, you can work on visual tracking, and you can also work on handwriting. And each of those separate areas has basically a different app within the app to focus on those skills.
You got some good screenshots here of what this app does. So we'll play a little bit of that. Now, when you were developing this app, what were the steps that you took to do that? I mean, most people wouldn't know the first thing about, they know how to use an app, but as far as developing an app, they would know the first thing as far as what to do to make that come to fruition?
Well, initially, I tried to do everything myself. However, when I got the final product, I wasn't 100% happy with it, so I had to outsource it. And I shopped around to different companies to see what they could do with the app and with my idea. And eventually we came up with IoT Session.
Well, it
Now,
looks
the
great.
marketing of it, I did the marketing of it the same way that I market the business, just sending it out to relevant people. And when you develop an app, say for the iPad, you have so many free giveaways. And so for those free giveaways, I would give them to maybe Advanced for OT and magazines like that for them to actually review the app and give me their opinion. And hopefully they would write an article on it.
Huh. Very interesting. When you outsourced the finality of that, where did you go to do that? I mean, to a different website to find a developer to help you out with that?
Yes, just looking across the web, I looked at different websites. Actually, once I went through a couple of websites and looked at some of the apps that the companies had developed, I said, okay, well, I like how they did this animation. I like how this other company did the data collection. And so let me basically interview both companies and see who can give me more bang for my buck.
So if if they have an Apple product, they can go on iTunes and get the app. Have you put it
Yeah,
on Google, on Android, or is it just on iTunes?
it's on Android as well.
It is. Okay, cool. And I wanted to explore those different things that you're doing, like the therapy and the IoT session. You're developing all kinds of different stuff because you're obviously a very innovative guy. So I want to put that bug into different therapist ears as far as, if you're in private practice or even if you're not in private practice, it's a good way. I'm going to stop the screen sharing. It's a good way. It's a good way to get your name out there as an authority, to develop new things. So that's cool.
Yes, and like you're saying, for therapists need to recognize that they are the authority. You don't necessarily need a middleman to do everything for you. A lot of people will shop their ideas to other companies, and that company may want 85% of the income when it's all your idea. And so I would really stress to therapists, there's so many things you can do on your own. You have the world in front of you now, the internet, you have a wealth of information in front of you.
Yeah. I marvel just at YouTube itself, and I've told my son before, we could probably build anything short of a nuclear reactor off of YouTube. You can find out how to do all kinds of stuff on the internet. So yeah, it's just a matter of priorities and making the right steps of doing that. So if you have that in you to develop something similar, man, go for it. You got very little to lose. That's awesome. I want to go
Exactly.
back to your private practice. You said that you were billing the state Medicaid system for your pediatrics. Is Medicaid covering for pediatrics or different insurances? Are you finding that third-party sources are paying for the OT?
Well, actually, now everything with my practice is actually private pay. And what we'll do, we'll give the services, evals, assessments, or treatment, and we will give an invoice for their insurance company. And the parents will send that invoice to the insurance company. And if the insurance companies have any questions, they usually contact us, or they'll tell the parent, well, we need to know A, B, and C. Could you have Dr. Covington put A, B, and C on there, and then we'll be fine.
Okay. Have you found that works fairly well in your geographical area? Because in my area, the state Medicaid system is pretty robust. I mean, most of the clients in my practice are Medicaid, and Medicaid in my state pays pretty decent, whereas I know other states they don't pay at all, or they pay at such a low rate that it's just almost not worth it. Are you finding pretty good success as far as with parent satisfaction, that sending the bill in themselves to the insurance companies is okay with them for the most part?
For the most part, yes. I haven't had too many complaints. I've had, one or two insurance companies ask for just a plethora of information that I didn't think was relevant. However, if that's what they needed, that's what we will give.
Yes, I call insurance companies. I mean, they just put so many roadblocks in the way.
Yes.
It's so it's so frustrating. If you could do a totally cash system, man, that's the way to go. But depending on where you're at, that might not be a very feasible.
Yeah.
So, oh man, yeah, I feel your pain on that one. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of assessing. If you're just starting out, you really have to. Dr. Covington and I couldn't say, hey, do it this one way, because each geographical area, each state is so different, or can be so different. I mean, there's definitely some similarities amongst different places, but each state kind of makes their own rules, so you kind of have to see what everybody's doing. Yeah. I usually tell a therapist, see what the competition is doing. How are they doing it?
Exactly. That's a big part of my research on a daily basis, seeing what everyone else is doing and how they're doing it. And I look at ways, well, how can I be a little bit better? How can I twerk this a little bit more? And so I think that's a big part of your business as well, knowing what everyone else is kind of doing.
Yeah, you got to keep up with the times, see what's going on. I like to read different business books or different books about entrepreneurship. When you first started out, and even now, were there some go-to books you're like, hey man, this has got some good information that you would recommend to other therapists that they read?
No particular books. I like to really stay on top of current research and seeing what field OT can kind of bleed into, and what can kind of bleed into OT. And I think that keeps me on top of my game, and I think that's the thing that more so motivates me. I think I already have an entrepreneurial spirit, and so when I see this new research and say, oh wow, that's really cool, let me see, can I get into that? I want to know more about that. And so I think that's my drive.
I can see that. Yeah, you're probably reading everything that comes across the wire as far as new research, and seeing. I'm kind of like that myself, as far as, hey, can I inject a little OT into that research and
right
and package it up this way, and maybe people would like that. And if you're an OT and you want to do private practice, you need to be doing that. You need to be subscribing to different research websites or different medical websites, and especially your practice organization, whether it's Aota or APTA and the speech ASHA. So
exactly,
you should, for a long time, Aota, they wanted that upfront yearly payment of, I can't remember what it was, $300 or whatever. And I was like, man,
yeah.
I can't spring for $300+, but they changed that to the monthly fee, and I can do the $18.75 a lot easier.
That makes it a lot easier, a lot more manageable.
Are you going to the Aota convention this year?
Yes, I will be attending this year. Actually, I will have a video played this year at the conference, and it's I came up with a concept to promote occupational therapy, where I just reached out and I asked just a lot of people, a lot of occupational therapists around the world to just hold up a sign saying, I am OT. And I received submissions from Bethlehem to Pakistan to Brazil to Mexico, just from all over the world. And it's just a beautiful thing to see occupational therapy everywhere in so many different cultures. And so I put that video together along with actually some music that I composed, and I'm speaking over the track. And I was asked, could it be played at the conference? So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that everything goes well and they say it's a good video. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I, I assume you'll put the video up at some point where we can all see it.
yes, I think I'm going to put it up the beginning of OT month in April.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. It's funny. I still have the email. I don't know if I ran across your request for that, holding up the sign. I came across it either on Google Plus or Twitter. So I emailed it to myself and I was like, I need to do this. And it's it's still sitting. It's in my priority email. I got it starred. And obviously I didn't get to it. So I apologize for that. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Now, when we before we got started here, you said you have 4 kids of your own.
Yes.
And I always like to ask how being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, a private practice business owner, how do you think that has affected your family? And especially, you're raising kids, you're showing them some good stuff. How do you think it's affected them for the positive as far as that goes?
Okay. Well, that daddy can make his own schedule. If daddy doesn't want to go to work one day and he wants to attend a play at school, daddy doesn't have to ask anybody, can I have off or do I need to reserve these days off? And so I think that's one of the biggest positive aspects of it, that I can be more involved at school, that I can be more involved in extracurricular activities. And I think the kids really benefit from that.
Yes. Did I see somewhere that you had written a book either for children or maybe geared more towards dads as far as how to be a better parent? It seems like I ran across a book that you had written, something like that.
Well, I have 3 books. One is geared toward kids. Actually, I wrote for my oldest son, who's 11 now, and that focused more so on, say, kindergarten, first grade skills, making sure that you know the base levels of everything you're supposed to know when you're coming into school. Because I just constantly practice with him. I said, hey, I should put this into a book. And so the book was born. The other books that I've written, one is more so, I work in the inner city, and so there's a lot of, like you were saying, bad situations that kids are coming up in. And so what I did, I put out a request to African American men specifically to give me a quote that what kind of motivates them to stay positive and to stay focused. And I created just a little free website, and I sent a request out, and I said, okay, well, I'll take this down in a week because I'll have probably, a good 20 or 30 people that send something. And so I forgot to take it down that week, and so it stayed up for 3 weeks. And by the time I looked at it again, I had over 2,000 submissions. And so that book was kind of born by accident because publishers started sending me emails asking me what I'm doing with the information. So that book was born by accident.
That is awesome. That's really cool. I mean, that's a positive influence that you're making on some people who I'm sure who have some difficulties in their life, as we say. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Good for you. Oh man, I knew I had seen that somewhere, and I can't remember where I saw it. And I was like, Dr. Covington's got more stuff going on than just some OT. He's making a positive influence in like you said, in inner city, and just us guys need to hear that message. We need to be challenged, from other guys, just to make a step up to the plate and raise our game. So good for you. I like to hear that.
Thank you.
Yes. Good. Well, Dr. Covington, I know you are a busy man. I'm sure you got more stuff to create just today. So I appreciate you joining me today. And
Well, I thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
oh yeah, this has been a treat. I've been looking forward this for a while. We tried to schedule this before my new baby came along, and it just didn't work. So I appreciate you being
Yeah,
patient.
no problem. No problem. My pleasure.
Yes, very cool. Well, that's the end of the broadcast. I'm going to push stop here, but Dr. Covington, you hold on here, and hopefully we can talk off air. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.